What up, party people? What up, boys and girls? Yeah, this is Chef, New Zealand Murder History Podcast. Now check this one out. Today's Parihaka Day. So happy Parihaka Peace Day to everybody. Hope it goes well for you. So, that's Te Whiti o Rongomai and Tohu Kakahi, two Maori chiefs from Te Atiawa tribe, and Maori say rangatira for chief. And we're going to be discussing those blokes, amongst other things. So let's set this camera up then. It's not quite in focus, is it? Let's maybe about there. Yeah, there we go, that'll do it. Now, I'm not talking about all the history of Te Atiawa tribe and the Parihaka occupation. This is just going to be a brief rundown and me reading a few articles about Te Whiti o Rongomai and Tohu Kakahi, plus story time. And I hope you like it. Let's just get this window up here. It makes the sound better if I put the windows up. I need some air, maybe a little bit. First off, my show's not suitable for children. Kids, click off. I'll be discussing false arrest, false imprisonment, land confiscation, racism, and sex assault. Anyone suffering from PTSD or some other mental problem, click off and seek support from your GP or call one of the many 0800 numbers available. My show is just for educational purposes and not to cause offence to anybody. New Zealand Murder History Podcast is mostly put together from information found on the internet. But on this subject, I actually already knew plenty, as I've met Te Atiawa tribe, and I've even been invited onto Parihaka, to the marae at Parihaka. So, let's reference. First one, stuff.co.nz article. Parihaka anniversary marked with dawn blessing in Nelson. And that one's written by Shakara Boini. Probably not pronouncing that right. Skara Boini. Anyway, 2nd of November 2021. Then I'm going to read stuff.co.nz article. Greenstone thieves sent to prison, written on January the 31st, 2009, available on stuff.co.nz. Then finally, NZ Herald article, mother to continue court battle for dead son, written on the 9th of March, 2009, and you can find that one on www.nzherald.co.nz. I also watched Kaupapa on the Couch, uploaded to youtube.com in 2018. The Evasion of Parihaka and Why It Needs to Be Remembered. Kaupapa on the Couch. I think it's Kaupapa. Anyway, Kaupapa on the Couch. Her channel is called The Spin-Off and seems to have been made for TV. Parihaka anniversary marked with dawn blessing in Nelson. Alright, let's do it. Parihaka prophets Te Whiti o Rongomai and Tohu Kakahi were imprisoned following the raids of the Taranaki settlement. They were held in Nelson under house arrest for 7 months. The 140th anniversary of Parihaka will be marked in Nelson with a dawn blessing in Anzac Park on Parihaka Day, November the 5th. Parihaka Day, or Te Ra o Te Pahau, the Day of Plunder, marks the day the settlement of Parihaka and Taranaki was invaded by 1,600 armed volunteers and constabulary field force troops representing the colonial government. So yeah, I'm going to refer to them later as the redcoats, but I'm not sure if they were actually wearing red coats, but some were volunteers, some were constabulary field force troops, but military, you get it. Okay, let's continue this article. 200 of those volunteers come from Nelson. The Parihaka leaders, Te Whiti o Rongomai and Tohu Kakahi, who mandated peaceful protests, were arrested and held under house arrest in Nelson for 7 months. The anniversary event organised by Parihaka Network Na Manu Korihi Mai Whakatu will start at 5:30 a.m. on Friday, November the 5th. End of article. Now here's a brief rundown of the history. Parihaka settlement is a Maori pa with a marae there and was set up by 2 chiefs of Te Atiawa tribe in 1866. Built on land confiscated by the Crown, Parihaka was a peaceful demonstration of defiance against Queen Victoria, Pākehā rule and the confiscation of Maori land. Te Whiti o Rongomai and Tohu Kakahi sent members of their tribe to pull down fences and also pegs set up by land surveyors to make their point. It's important to mention that Tohu and Te Whiti could have done much worse. But these people, they weren't violent, you know. Their wicked and seditious master plan was ploughing the land and planting kumara and other crops. For this, the Crown sent 1,600 heavily armed troops to the peaceful Maori settlement on November the 5th, 1881. The Maori tribe didn't wish to fight, sending kids to play out front and offering the redcoats food. To Te Whiti o Rongomai, Te Whiti o Rongomai and Tohu Kakahi were arrested, along with other men of Te Atiawa, and taken to prison in nearby New Plymouth, before being jailed in the South Island, Christchurch to begin with. Some women were sex assaulted. It was truly awful. Down in the South Island, it was kind of odd. The crowd sort of paraded the 2 mighty rangatira around in an attempt to brainwash them, along to the point of view that big things were happening and that one day they would appreciate all the wonderful things that colonization of Aotearoa would bring to their people. Te Whiti and Tohu were not amused. Yeah, they got dragged around, spending time in Bluff, Invercargill, and eventually getting put under house arrest here in Nelson, or Whakatu in Māori, for about 7 months. And after 2 years of asking for a fair trial and not ever getting one, Te Whiti o Rongomai and Tohu Kakahi returned to Taranaki, where they found their village in ruins. But they still weren't backing down. Yeah, the 2 Maori chiefs, or rangatira you say, they went straight back to pulling down fences and ploughing land. Yeah, the land that they were told was not theirs to plough. In 1907, Tohu Kakahi died, and a year later, so did Te Whiti o Rongomai. End of story. Of course, it's not the end of the whole story, but that's the end of the little biography I done on the chiefs. Now I'm going to go off topic for a minute and discuss stolen Greenstone artifacts found in Nelson and Marlborough in recent years. Much of it was actually returned to Parihaka. And as all the redcoats who were at Parihaka on that dreadful day, November the 5th, 1881, are now, dead and buried, well, I would encourage anyone living in old houses in the Nelson region to check your basements and attics to make sure you're not accidentally holding stolen greenstone, because it's not in your best interest to do so. Even though you had nothing to do with all that carry-on, the greenstone can and must be returned to Te Atiawa tribe. And now I'm going to read a few articles to illustrate my point. Greenstone thieves sent to prison. A father and son found guilty of stealing pounamu have each been sentenced to more than 2 years in prison and will have to pay $300,000. Family members broke down in tears as David Anthony Saxton and Morgan David Saxton, 30, were sentenced to 2 years, 9 months and 2 years, 6 months, respectively. More than 50 people were at the Christchurch District Court to witness the conclusion of the case, which began in May. The pair were found guilty in October of stealing the precious, so October 2008, but anyway, was stealing the precious greenstone from the Cascade Plateau in South Westland between October 1997 and September 2003. The Crown argued the pounamu was the property of Ngāi Tahu, and its theft had caused the tribe considerable spiritual offence as well as economic loss. In handing down his sentence, Judge Gary McCaskill said the men's actions had split the community in the area, as some supported the Saxtons while others condemned them.
It's apparent that your actions have caused irreparable damage, he said. It's clear that your offending has adverse economic and cultural consequences.
The Saxtons stood impassively as judgment was passed. A number of their supporters leaned into the dock and shook their hands as they left. Much of yesterday's proceedings was taken up with discussions about reparations. Crown Prosecutor Robin Bates said $680,000 worth of pounamu had been extracted and sold by the pair, both pilots, for a commercial helicopter business in Haast. A further $198,000 had been recovered from the pair, who illegally mined and sold the resource using their helicopter to transport it. However, Defence Counsel Colin Withnall QC said reparations should not be based on proceeds from the operation.
The loss or damage to Ngāi Tahu was not the net sale proceeds, because it's not what they could have acquired if it had not been stolen, he said.
Withnall suggested a more realistic figure for reparations was $240,000. He drew attention to the men's previous good characters, said they had saved lives as part of their work they did with search and rescue in the area and were highly regarded.
It is an aberration that they are before the courts on this matter. It's really quite inexplicable, and they should not be here at all.
Morgan Saxton was less culpable than his father and had been brought up taking part in the mining activities and was a follower, not an initiator. Withnall also said that a restorative justice hearing last week, the pair had apologised and offered to give information to Ngāi Tahu about the location and extraction of pounamu. He argued Ngāi Tahu would profit from having 400 kgs to 690 kgs of the greenstone which was recovered from the pair returned to them. After some deliberations, the two sides agreed to settle on $300,000. Earlier, Bates had said the offence had been aggravated by the length of time the pair carried out the operation, the premeditation involved, and the lack of remorse they had shown. Ngāi Tahu Chairman Mark Solomon said he was happy with the sentence. "Yeah, I think justice has been done, he said. "We take no pleasure in the sentences, but we believe they send a clear message to people that the theft of pounamu from Ngāi Tahu will result in prosecution supported by the full weight of the law." End of article. Alright. You're probably wondering why I'm going on so off topic, talking about chopper pilots from Haast stealing greenstone from Ngāi Tahu. Well, listen to this. Now we're going to read NZ Herald article, Mother to continue court battle for dead son. The mother of a Haast helicopter pilot killed in a crash last year has been granted leave to continue the fight against his conviction and sentence for the theft of greenstone. Morgan David Saxton and his father David Anthony Saxton, then aged 30 and 62 respectively, last year received jail terms of 2 years, 6 months, and 2 years and 9 months respectively. They were also required to pay a South Island iwi reparations of $300,000. Prosecutors alleged the pair, both helicopter pilots, stole nearly $900,000 of stone, mostly greenstone, belonging to Ngāi Tahu, from Southwestland's Cascade Plateau between 1997 and 2003. Both were granted leave to appeal and released on bail. Morgan Saxton died in November last year when his helicopter went down in Lake Wanaka. Friends said he had been texting at the time, but it is not known if this was a factor in the crash. As he died without a will, Saxton's estate comes under the control of his mother. The Court of Appeal today granted her leave to continue the battle, noting the reparation order meant she had a continuing financial interest in the outcome. During a 2-month trial in 2007, David Saxton had claimed he was entitled to mine Greenstone as it was a family tradition practiced by his father, and his wife had been a direct descendant of Te Kuti Tauranga, Kamatua of Southwestland in 19th century. His claim of customary rights upset Maori tribes. As part of their sentence, the Saxtons were required to write a formal apology to be published in the Ngāi Tahu magazine. The community railed behind the men who were rescue pilots and were described by Defence Counsel Colin Withnall QC as having often risked their lives to save others. In April 2008, while the pair were in custody, 10 helicopters and a plane towed a banner over Paparua prison which read, "Free the Saxtons now." A month later, a group of Haast women stripped naked for a calendar shoot to raise funds for them. End of article. So yeah, I'd just like to say, I'm not sure about making Morgan David Saxton's mum pay for her son's actions is really correct. I mean, unless she was somehow involved in like fencing the stolen greenstone, something like that. I do understand she's under control of his estate. He didn't have a will. I get what I just read. I'm just saying it doesn't sound that fair to me. I mean, I just don't see what her role to play in this whole thing really was. But I also don't really know much about this case. But anyway, let's keep reading what I've written down here. This is kind of interesting. I mean, she has no control over her 30-year-old son's actions, but yeah, the father and son, they were let out of Christchurch Men's Prison to appeal their sentences when Morgan Saxton crashed the chopper into Lake Wanaka. It was the 1st of November 2008. It was said turbulence was the cause of the crash. The dad, David Saxton, won his appeal and was put on house arrest in Picton for 6 months. And the fines were reduced, but I didn't write that bit down. I'm not sure how much he was made to pay in the end. So yeah, that's pretty interesting, eh? Now I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. So that's 62-year-old David Saxton, and that's his son Morgan Saxton, 30-year-old in that photo. Let's get proper light in here. There we go, that's better. Yeah, so it was his son who crashed the chopper into Lake Wanaka. He was on bail, awaiting the outcome of his appeal. Let's get another shot of Te Whiti o Rongomai while we're here, in Tohu, Kakahi. So yeah, 2 Maori chiefs. They're pretty cool. They believed in non-violent protests. Yeah, so I actually went up to Parihaka one time and it was really cool. I went up there and on the way there, this dude randomly took me to his granddad's house, and his granddad had a photo of this old lady. She had like a moko, and she was wearing a greenstone necklace with a tiki, and it was cool because it was like yeah, he asked her if he could take a photo of her, and he took like 3 photos, and they're like historical photos because she would have been a kid when Parihaka was invaded in 1881, and that was kind of interesting. And then I went up there and that was cool too. I learned heaps about. Yeah, no, it was choice. Yeah, Parihaka tribe invited me onto their marae, and they all gave me hongi. It was really nice. And then they made a hangi, gave me something to eat. That was pretty cool. Yeah. Have a good one, everybody.